right, welcome everyone. I love the dramatic music as we prepare to have this pre-conference promotional session. My name is Lindsay Brown from Beyond Clean, and joining me for this discussion today and to help me get you and your colleagues all worked up for this Friday's global virtual event called All Worked Up, Smart Productivity in Sterile Processing is Seamus Johnson, Senior Director of Application Development at Census Technologies. Census Technologies is our generous sponsor for this event. And Seamus, I know you and your colleague Kelly Swales are kicking off the event this Friday. Could you shed a little light from your perspective on what exactly smart productivity means? It's the name of the event. I know there's significance behind it, but can you share what smart productivity means to you?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here. Yeah, so we've done a lot of work here to help our customers understand with data what it is they actually need to do and what it is they're doing today that maybe they don't need to do. So smart productivity isn't necessarily doing more with less. It means doing the things that are value added, the things that are super important, and not doing the things that you don't need to do. Every customer I talk to everywhere struggles with, hiring enough talented sterile processing professionals. That's a big challenge. It's gotten even bigger. It's been a big challenge for years, but with the pandemic, it's gotten even more challenging. And so it's super important to recognize when you've got waste in the process and eliminate that. One example that everybody can point to is we all know that there are lots of instruments and trays that get processed but never get used. And so being able to use data to understand what's not being used, how you can eliminate that, makes that a lot easier to tackle, right? If you want to take instruments out of a tray, you've got to have conversations with surgeons and surgical techs, and everybody has to be on board with that. And having that conversation without data is very difficult. Another thing that we found is that there's a lot of work that gets put on sterile processing everywhere. And a lot is asked of the department, and not all of that necessarily needs to be on the department. So understanding how much time you spend doing all of this other stuff beyond just processing trays for the operating room is really important. So then you can, again, have those data-driven conversations with leadership and make a decision, a conscious decision. Is this the right place for that work to exist? Should your department be building crash carts, as an example, right? Or should that be on materials? And it's okay if your department does it, as long as everybody is eyes wide open, understands what that means in terms of your ability to support cases, right? So that's what that really means to me.
I love that. You mentioned the word data, and we hear all the time, data is king, data is queen, data is what can help you make an argument for additional staff members, for additional equipment, data. Is there a world where someone has just insurmountable amounts of data, but they're in a position where they're like, I don't know how to sort through this and to actually use this to position our department in the greatest need for these additional resources? Is that something that your team helps with? And is that something that attendees will learn about at the conference on Friday?
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what our team helps with. So we would love to talk to anybody one-on-one who's interested in how we can help with that. But yeah, in our presentation, Kelly and I will be going through some practical examples for how you can use the data that you might collect using a tracking system to improve efficiency, identify waste, and eliminate that. Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. I know you mentioned that recruiting high-quality sterile processing professionals continues to be a challenge for a lot of sterile processing department hiring managers, and there's still some struggle to overcome that. And with these staffing shortages as these staffing shortages become sort of this new normal, in your mind, how can departments do more with the resources they currently have? I know we're going to deep dive into this in one of the sessions on Friday, but is there something that comes to mind right away when you talk to someone who's like, staffing shortages is my primary issue right now? Is there one little nugget of gold that you can give just in preparation for the conference that will pique that person's interest who is really struggling to overcome that challenge?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that was very heartening to us when we look at the data. When we look at data across hundreds of different customers across the United States, one of the things that stands out in the data is that people matter. People matter a lot. So one of the things that you can do is you can recognize your top performers, but you can also elevate newer technicians and help them to grow as technicians. So for example, one of the things the data shows is that as people become more proficient with the instrumentation, not only do they make fewer mistakes, but they're processing more trays and they're processing them faster. And that's just absolutely fantastic to see. Like I said, it really underscores with data how much people matter. So I think that's a great example of something that everybody can look forward to.
I love that. I love that. You mentioned those high performers, but we do have one session that I'm really excited about that's really going to take a look at the underperformers. And what that session is going to focus on is really that how to come alongside the sterile processing technicians who are maybe unproductive or low performing, and how to set them up for success. And the sterile processing manager who's going to be presenting this session is going to address the question, is the low performance a personal choice, or is it a department orientation and training process that's to blame? And I think that's a really important conversation, especially as we look at productivity numbers and we look at those high performers versus low performers, is what is the root cause of that underperformance or that low performance?
Yeah, no, that's a great point. You know, everybody's different. Every department's different. Everybody who comes to this conference will know the context of their own department. They know their own people. What we do know from the data is that that investment in people pays off and pays off big. You know, the difference between somebody who's new and maybe an underperformer and somebody who's a seasoned technician that knows their instrumentation, it's huge. You can see 2, 3, 4 times as much productivity out of your top performers as you do out of somebody who's relatively new. So putting that investment in people, training, coaching, one-on-one sessions to make sure that they're engaged, that they understand that they're supported, pays off huge dividends. It's absolutely worth it.
It really goes back to your statement that people matter,
Yeah.
and that's sort of the foundation that's laid, that all of this productivity work and all of this quality work can be built on top of. And speaking of productivity and quality, it seems like there's sort of an adverse relationship between those two terms that tend to play out in many discussions about productivity. And that's sort of this tangle between, can you be productive and still maintain quality? And I know Jill Sweeney and Beth Perry are going to be talking about that relationship between those two critical variables in the overall success of a sterile processing department. My question to you is, overall, if you were to choose one thing that a sterile processing manager or whoever is set sort of in charge of this productivity quality goal, what should they focus on first to get these two ideas or these two terms really into alignment in their department?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think the answer is you focus on the people. What we understand, we came into this project with very much the hypothesis that at some point when you're pushing productivity, you have to sacrifice quality, and vice versa, right? If you want to drive quality, you have to slow down and sacrifice productivity. And what we found is that the relationship between those two is more complicated, more nuanced than that. So it isn't typically the case that managers go into a department with a stopwatch and stand over people and push them to go faster, 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 faster all the time, right? I mean, if you walk into a random department, you're likely to find managers that are preaching, you know, we've got to get this stuff right. The patient is the most important thing, right? And not pushing people to go faster, faster, faster. And so as a result, it is true that when people rush, they make more mistakes, but they don't rush for the reasons we think that they rush necessarily. We can also, like I said, see in the data that as someone becomes more proficient, as they learn the instrumentation, as they grow, they do process more trays and they make fewer mistakes as a percentage of the trays they process. Their error rates actually go down, their productivity goes up. So if you want to get those two things into alignment, I think you look at the people first. Look to where you've got top performers and where you've got opportunities for growth. Measure that with data. Put together the coaching plans and the education plans. Work with your educators to do targeted education. Help your technicians to grow, and it will absolutely pay off.
I love that. You mentioned something that just kind of stuck in my mind, that people don't cut corners or for reasons that you expect them to cut corners. Is that how you phrased it?
Yeah.
Shed a little light on that. I'm so intrigued.
Yeah, right. So we thought, if we look across a bunch of different hospitals, what we would find is that hospitals with higher throughput would also have higher defect or error rates, right? The technicians would be making more mistakes because they're processing trays faster. And that's not what we found. What we found is that technicians do make mistakes when they rush, but they tend to rush when things get backed up in the department. If you look to see how many trays are waiting to be processed, when that number gets high, that's when most of the mistakes happen. And so a department that has a high throughput tends to keep those levels of trays down. And as a result, people don't rush. They've figured out how to be more efficient in the processing, not how to rush, right?
Mm-hmm.
So by being more efficient and keeping the inventory levels down, that is the WIP levels, the work in process, keeping that down keeps the technicians from rushing, keeps your defect rates low, mistakes low, right? So it is a little more nuanced and a little bit more complicated than we imagined when we first started on this. And there's really good news in there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. There's good news in that. So just based on the conference descriptions in the registration, and I'm gonna throw up the flyer onto the screen here so folks can know sort of what to expect and what to look forward to for the conference on Friday. We've got some really, really, really great sessions here. And one of the questions that I want to ask you, and one of the things that I know that you're going to talk about, is you're actually going to give specific information about what trays make sense to optimize. And so there's going to be a lot of nuggets of information that I think folks will be able to really take and put into effect right away. We're going to talk about, what specific metrics make sense for departments to start tracking. If you're not tracking any valuable metrics at this point, where to start. And so, coming from your perspective, what do you envision being one of the biggest takeaways in terms of the value that someone's going to get from this conference?
Yeah, so in our session, we're going to talk about, how to stay on top of things, how to make your process more efficient. The title of the session is Work Harder or Work Smarter, Not Harder. But in reality, working smarter means understanding, where effort is being wasted and eliminating that waste. And so we'll go through a couple of practical examples about how to do that, how to apply that with data that you could already be tracking today with your existing tracking system. So as an example, you touched on this a little bit. Everybody everywhere knows we've got a couple of trays that are bloated. There's tons of stuff in these trays that we know never gets used, right? And we want to take some of that stuff out. The question is, is that investment worth it? And what will the return on that investment be? You have to burn a lot of calories to do that, right? Because you have to go and have those conversations with surgeons, with service leads, scrub techs. Everybody has to buy into, okay, we're going to take this big tray and we're going to split it into 2 trays and we're going to move some of this stuff into peel packs. And some of this stuff we're just going to take out and never put back, right? Everybody's got to sign off on that, particularly the surgeon. And so you need to be able to have that conversation with data. You can't just go in and say, well, I feel like there's too much stuff in here. Let's just take some out, right? So that's super important. And we'll show you how to measure not just which trays you should optimize, but be able to understand what level of benefit you'll get by making that investment. So you can decide whether or not it's worth it and at what time it's worth it to pursue that, right? So if you can remove waste like that from your process, if you can understand, all of the different things that your department is spending time on, identify it, eliminate the stuff that's wasted effort, you'll be able to process more trays with the people you've got. By keeping those WIP levels down, you will keep the technicians from rushing to try and get caught up. You will be producing more trays for the OR and making fewer mistakes. And you'll have opportunities for your people to grow in the process.
I love that. And again, I feel like the through line through this conversation has been the people. Really focusing on making sure that the people have resources, the people have the training, the people have the data to back the conversations related to, additional resources for the department. And really that people have resources like your team at Census to tap into, because Seamus, I know just in this, what has been 16 minutes, you have dropped some serious nuggets of information that I know sterile processing department leaders are going to be like, holy crap, I need to go to this conference. And, that's the point of this discussion, right? But there's going to be so much valuable information shared. If you were to choose like an ideal, and maybe there isn't an answer for this, but if you were to choose an ideal position, like a job title within a department that you think would benefit most from this type of content at this particular conference, is there one, or is it everybody?
I think maybe benefit the most would be the leadership in the department. So your department manager, your peri-op director, the leads for sure, the educator as well. I think for all of those folks who are either in a leadership role or a coaching role or a planning role, data is absolutely critical. I don't think anybody will be shocked that people matter. I think everybody knows that, but being able to see that in the data is really cool.
That is really cool. Yeah. And I love that you mentioned a couple different positions. This conference is accredited for 6 CEs for both sterile processing and nursing professionals. So I love that we can make this conversation about smart productivity. Even though the title says in sterile processing, that smart productivity affects every department that sterile processing serves. And so having these interdisciplinary conversations, I think, are a really big part of creating that success. I'm really looking forward to the conversation about the specific trays, because you're right. Literally everybody listening to this is probably like, yep, that's this tray, or that's this tray, or we know the trays that come back and only 20% of the instruments were used. And so having those conversations to, eliminate the extra work is a really great first step in upping productivity and upping quality. Because you can focus more on the instruments that need it, that were used. Seamus, this has been really, really a great conversation, and I think it's provided some details that will be, further addressed at the conference on Friday. But I want to encourage everyone, if you haven't registered yet, I'm going to put the registration link down below again, just so you can see educate.beyondclean.net/allworkedup2023. Even if you can't join us live for the event on Friday, register anyway. You'll get all the access links so you can watch it on demand whenever it's convenient for you. One thing that I love about these live sessions, though, is you can, send in your questions. And even if you watch it on demand, there's still an opportunity to send in questions as you watch it, and the presenters will get back to you with answers to those questions. So if you've ever wondered anything related to productivity, quality, inventory management, things of that nature, data, metrics, you name it, this is the conference for you. And so we're really, really excited. 9 a.m. Eastern is the start time on Friday. And I know we'll be seeing a lot of Census personalities at the event, which we're super excited about. Seamus, is there anything additional that you want to leave the audience with as they prepare to register after they watch this session?
Yeah, no, I like you. I am super excited for this conference. I've seen the lineup. I know the people that are there, just some fantastic people, and there will be so much to learn.
Agreed.
So yeah, I would really encourage everybody to sign up. Absolutely.
All right. Excellent. Well, Seamus, it's been a pleasure chatting with you and getting everyone all worked up to hit that registration and join us for a spectacular event. All Worked Up, Smart Productivity and Sterile Processing, sponsored by Census, powered by Beyond Clean, and in partnership with First Case Media for our nursing credits for our nursing folks and friends. We're excited to see everyone on Friday. Until then, don't forget to keep fighting dirty. Register today, and we'll see everyone back on Friday.
All right. Thank you.